Hello, this is DHG, and I'm doing my review of Dead Space. I played it on the PC, but it's available on PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. Um, they're supposed to be making a remake of it. This is the original game. I love to play the remake when it comes out, but this is for the original. And my overall review of this game is average. Some people might be thinking, Dead Space? Really? Yeah, it had some hangups with it. Some things that just bothered me to no end. Okay, as per my normal review criteria, my handwritten bullshit here. Um, First off is graphics. I got no complaints about the graphics. It's very good. There's not a lot of variety within the environments. It's all interior, kind of mechanical looking, almost warehousey types of feel, but there's enough of a variety between the environments among the vacuum environments that you do and the, I could call it a spacewalk at some point. But it keeps it varied up enough so that you don't stare at the whole thing. I mean, stare at the same thing the entire time you're playing. The blood effects and the gore, which is obviously very important for any type of survival horror game, they're pretty good and they're spot on. Sometimes they're just downright comical, which I enjoy. Um, Particle effects, smoke, and all that. I mean, it all looks pretty good. It really sells the presentation that you are actually in space with this, because some games just don't pull off the presentation. I think the worst offender here was Fallout New Vegas. I never really felt like I was in the desert the whole time. They keep saying you're in the Mojave, but it just looked like different colored sand to me. It wasn't sold, but in Dead Space they sell it and they sell it well. Facial animations and facial designs. This is still within terms of graphics too. I thought that was pretty advanced for the time. Because if you look at other games that came out around the same time, like Fallout 3, this was so far ahead. They did a really good job with the faces for as few as they are, which may be why they were so good. They only had to create a couple different ones. Alright, controls are next. This is one of the biggest hits on the game. I only have two real big hits on the game. I would have given this a good score, but this was what dragged it down for me. Controls. The way that they set up the... Now, if you play this with a mouse, you can just forget everything and give it a good rating, but if you're using it with a gamepad like I did, and probably most people will, then this is applicable here. The dead zones on your controller, both the right thumbstick and the left thumbstick, massive, massive dead zones that you cannot cancel out in any way, shape, or form. I managed to do it, however, though, because I have my Xbox Series X controller here, just making sure it was in the shot. I also have an old Turtle Beach one. I hate the Turtle Beach one. It's way too sensitive, but it came in handy in this game. So if you got a sensitive controller lying around, maybe because the thumbsticks are a little worn or they're just sensitive by default, like my Turtle Beach, then use it. Because the dead zones are extremely large in this game, and once it starts moving, it just accelerates. So you get either too much output or too little input. And in certain parts of the game, in a certain specific situation, which I'll get into later, actually in the next segment, it's just so infuriating to no end. So the controls are bad, but as the controls are laid out on the controller, it all works together very well. You have different control overlays where one button can do multiple things. Certain controls are only activated if you press a certain trigger down, stuff like that. So they can map a lot of functions into a small amount of keys, which the game board has. I just say game board. The gamepad has, but it works out pretty well. You might be bumbling around for a little bit until you get used to the controls, but overall, it's aside from those massive dead zones that you have no control over, the controls are good. But those dead zones are just, oh, for the remake that they're making, they need to address that issue. Gameplay. Typical survival horror. You know, you gotta manage your inventory and hope you have enough ammo around for the next bosses. But this game uses a kind of a clever system where it only drops ammo for the weapons that you're currently equipped with. So if you have something in storage, you're not going to find a lot of ammo for that. You will find some, but you're not going to find a lot. The gameplay doesn't really revolve around puzzle solving as much as some other survival horror games like Resident Evil 2, where you need a certain key to unlock certain doors. You don't find any of that here. This kind of foregoes all that to try to give you a more straightforward horror experience, and also pulls out well on the shooter front too. Most of the scares you would get, if you're new to this kind of thing, are mainly from jump scares. There's some sort of imagery in here, but it's not really, it doesn't rise to the level of games like Amnesia: The Dark Descent, but it can still be disturbing nonetheless. Especially, I don't remember what chapter in the game it was, but it shows a bunch of, let's just say, horribly deformed people. And with the with the gameplay, this is my biggest knock on the game. I think it was chapter 5. It was either chapter 5 or 6, one of them. I think halfway through the level, you walk through this area that's being bombarded with asteroids, and actually, I think I picked this specific video for that. Yeah, here it is. I'm going to pause it right here. See, for a survival horror game, you'd think they would try to keep the linear gameplay focused on a survival horror narrative, but all of a sudden, the developers had this great idea to throw a shooting gallery in with it. And I'll show you. With no sound, of course, but yeah. Here you are. All these asteroids that you're seeing are randomly generated. You're not going to get the same pattern twice, so if you have a good run or an easy run, depends on if you're going to make through this, or you could just be that good at aiming. And if so, then screw you. I don't know how many times I died doing this, and then I had to go through the game and do it again because Chapter 7 failed to record properly. But let's just go through and witness my many deaths. Oh, wait. Huh. I must have edited that out. Oh, no. No, I didn't edit it out. I guess it just... You would have to go back and watch that chapter again. I tried to get this in here, but for some reason the video didn't cut properly. Maybe I should step up to better video editing software. But yeah, you see me dying right there. I die probably at least 10-15 times. It is infuriating. But they threw that level in there, and the extreme difficulty on this one level and how it's completely random, it's mixed with what I was bitching about in the previous segment with the controls in the large dead zones. Doing this is, I mean, you want to break your controller in half. It is that infuriating. And for some people that are playing through this, like I really love Dead Space, but I can't do this part. Some may persevere and get it eventually, but some people might just say screw it and put the game down right there. So if I hope that when they do the remake this year, they cut this part out entirely or make it more manageable. And that's it on the gameplay part. Sound, the sound's pretty good. There's not a lot of ambient noise in the background. Like I thought I would hear more creaking, mechanical creaking, since you're in a big derelict ship after all. But it's not really there. I can't really say you miss it that much or it takes away from the atmosphere. but it would be nice to see it, or hear it, I should say. Other than that, the guns sound fine. The guns sound fine. Every time Isaac stomps on something, it sounds like it breaks a couple bones. The jump scares are good. Yeah, jump scares. It's late. I've had a long day. The music. Not a lot of music, which is pretty typical for survival horror games. It kicks up when it needs to, like during boss fights. There's not really any boss fights in this game except for the big one at the end, and when they throw a new enemy at you. But it's all pretty good. The story. The story was interesting. Um, I didn't really like how they ended it because it felt kind of cliche, but they let you know that another game was coming, that this was the start of a franchise. Stability and bugs. I didn't have any issues during this playthrough. Oh wait, yeah I did. The game crashed once, so who really cares? But I didn't have any issues on the console either, and I didn't read about many issues, so it's pretty good. With bugs, there was a few, but I mean it wasn't anything that was going to impact your gameplay. My opinions on this. Yeah, for the developers, what in the hell were you thinking about throwing a shooting gallery into the middle of a survival horror game? I mean, yeah, Resident Evil 4 did it, but that was entirely optional. What's on screen right now isn't skippable, and it's not cool. Considering how it's all randomly generated, and you could just get your ass gets hit with a ton of meteorites all at the same time, and your guns just happen to overheat. So that's it. My review for this game is average. Other games in the series, better, but this one, it's just average. Later.